Every now and then.
No, I don't.
Every now and then.
On my channel.
Dirt Perfect on Logger Wade, and we got the Harmless Farmer here with us. And Logger Wade is going to give us a tour of the mill and answer any questions we got. You ready for this?
It was actually my request to get the yak. It's clear face cuttings. That's what we fight for. Is clear face cuttings and a board. So that's what we're all graded on. That starts on the stump. So when we buy timber, we're trying to buy timber that's stretching good, shucking limbs good, and it's grown on good soil. So when you crack them open, there's good wood on the inside too. Lower grade logs, you got logs that are high grade logs. So it starts in the woods. For your butts,
now, an elementary statement is the butt log would be the first log coming off the stump.
Yes. But 80% of the value of a lot of trees that we have is in the bottom 20% of the tree. So your butt log is the freaking tree. And the rest of it, you're just trying to save as much as you can out of the tree, if that makes sense. So your butts are important. So the job you bought and harvested, it's all recorded in log form, so you know how that job turned out. Then you bring it to the debarker, and it rolls the log around, you take the bark out. Now what you try to do, it's a struggle because you got bumps and stuff and knots and logs. You see if you look up there and you see bumps and stuff in the logs, so you want a debarker where you can chew them off. But then when you go to getting in the bark, you don't want to dig in the outside of the tree because most of your money is on the outside of the wood. So any wood that this debarker's is eaten directly into your profit, the big chunk of your profit. So this debarker's got shoes on it, so anything that fits in between these shoes is fair game. But then when you're skating across the logs are riding on, these shoes are riding on, holding it out to where the teeth ain't eating into the cambium layer.
What kind of RPM?
You just got grease all over your hand there, man. I just thought I'd let you know.
That's how life is. I mean,
well, I just want to let you know before you...
Yep, it's up all over. There's rags and stuff around.
You use Cindy's shirt.
Yeah, I use Cindy's shirt.
What RPM's this thing turn?
It's 1 to 1, so it should be like...
So that log falls onto those rollers right there. I'm sure you guys have seen
1760.
1760, and it spins, and that thing travels back and forth along the log, and does the debarking.
And the log rolls with the head.
What kind of wood is it?
Just gum. It's a pallet wood. This is going for crading. This whole log is going to be sawed. These whole logs are going to be sawed to make pallet wood. To go to
Okay, so like around
Alto
us,
and stuff like that.
around us, they use like cottonwood for that. They got cottonwood.
Yeah, you use cottonwood for it too.
Okay.
Yeah. You got them species, there's no lumber market for it, you just make pallet wood.
Okay.
And then once that's done, then it goes over here to the head saw. Is they'll put it on that carriage runs back and forth, and these are two 40-foot shotguns. We put this in from a mill that went out of business down in Kentucky. And these pipes, they're not rods, they're not solid rods. But these pipes in this shotgun are 1/4-inch wall, just Schedule 40 pipes that's chromed. And there's no piston on it. The oil comes in this chamber.
Gosh, look at that hydraulic.
Yeah.
Hose.
So the hose comes in here and rushes past this tube, fills this whole tube full of oil, and then the oil fills the end of the tube and then shoves it, and there's one on the other end too, and it just, your guns just run and it's a real responsive setup. Look at the hoses on it and stuff. But we had to put all that in there.
Tremendous amount of control.
Yeah. We had a cable system, and even everybody that puts the DC drive, the fancy regenerative drives in, it makes electric. Got drives in, it's kind of like a Prius car. You're slowing down, it's making electricity. But they still don't have the response of the shotgun. But with a shotgun, you're paying both ways. You're paying money to stop and go.
Okay.
You know, because you're burning electricity all the time. So it's not quite as efficient, but you got superior control of your log or your sawing. Because when you go from, it's all about timing. So you load it up, you get a load on the carriage. Well, from here to that saw is dead time. So you want to, and then stop in a second and ease it through the saw. You see what I mean? And then race over here to do this, and race back. And you know, and so you can see the carriage just thundering down the tracks. And you know when he'll ramp up the speed and jump to that saw blade and slow down, ease the saw. And you come back and flip on the go and stuff, and then run back, and then it slows down and heads to the saw. And catch it with the bar turner, you know, or unless, when you first roll a log on a carriage, you're picking your Oh, your opening face is what you call it. That's real important with sawing. I'm getting too technical, but your opening face, that's when you decide, you pick the most expensive part of the log. It's always priorities. And everything about what we do is priorities. So you're trying to take the most amount of money, and that's what makes a decision on what you're doing for your job. So when you're opening up the log, the most important call to be made is what your opening face. And you put your knots in the corners the best you can, and you do your sweep just properly. This turner can ease your log up and put it in slapping. So you're making your first flat cut. So and then you're setting your taper, it can taper and stuff, and you're setting it to where that first, what's most expensive cutting, when you go through that saw, it's set up perfect to go through the saw and spread your defects out, stuff like that on your corners, and corner your knots, what they call it, you know. But then you can flip it and go to sawing like crazy then. You're just making a square cant. Now all he's trying to do on this thing, his most important job is make the right size opening face, which I ain't gonna get into all the sizes, but the right size opening face to where he can open his log up, and then he takes it down to below 18 inches for the other saw. And that top saw, that's catching your big log, you know.
Now, how big of a log can you cut through this?
We can cut some monsters, but we're wasteful. We call it barrel saws.
Okay.
You can put a monster ass log on there. If you got like the rest of the mill kind of shut down, everybody on doing other stuff, you can roll a monster log on this thing and back it way up. And then you saw face off, turn it 45 degrees. Saw face, you know, it ain't economical to do, but we do it. You can barrel saw. That's like everybody say, how big a tree can you cut with a cutter? You can cut them off if you want to. You know, you can sit there and hew on one until you finally get it, you know what I mean? But the biggest log we probably should cut is probably a 48 to 52 incher.
Okay.
That's probably what the biggest we should cut, if that makes sense. No, shit, I don't want to keep. Hang on, give me a second. I'm running.
We'll be back to this programming in a minute. Logger Wade is looking for keys.
This is our file room. We do all the work on the saws in here. These are head saws, they're 56 inch in diameter. And they got these carbide inserts. This is carbide, what does the cutting. And we got a jockey grinder to touch it up, just like filing your chainsaw outside. So the head sawyer, when he's sawing dirty wood, something ain't going right, you know, he just shuts down real quick, pulls out the jockey and puts the edge right back in your tooth. Now when you're sawing these hammered and stuff, saws are hammered for certain RPMs. And heat and stuff in your saw, heat expands metal. So say you warm the eye up, then it expands the metal in the eye. Well, the rim's cool. Well, it's going to turn into a soup bowl. And then that son of a buck's a flopping and doing it. It don't take long.
Do you do the hammer?
No, I can't. I'm not certified. I'm not qualified. Okay. Now we can do some hammer here. We got brick and ball that can hammer and stuff, but we do a lot. We send a lot of our blades out. We just keep extra blades and truck cycles through. This is your top saw. It's a 36 inch diameter, I believe. Don't hold me to that. But he's touching up the top saw. They touch it out back here because it's not used a lot. You know what I mean? And it's upside down, you know, so they just threw it back here. This is our band saws. They go around 6-foot wheels out there. And I don't remember what the length of the band saw is. I'm not super duper on all the terms on everything on the band saws. But band saws basically, you're taking metal that's in the body of the saw and swedging and shaping it to be a tooth. So the tooth on this saw blade is swedged and shaped metal, so it's got a can that reaches under here and squishes up the metal and makes it fat there. Then you got a side piece that squeezes it down, and then you put it through your profiler, which actually puts the edge on it, you know. So that's how this is done. So you're not adding anything to it. It's just the body of the saw is what you're using to cut. So it's kind of like a chainsaw in that aspect, you know. So you got something you can file. It's soft enough metal to file. Here's where they roll the head saws, and there's where you hammer the head saws. That's your anvil, and your hammer's. So when you hammer a head saw, you got a round shaped hammer. Man, I don't see a big saw here, but you're doing different shapes, and you're putting dings in them in accordance to what you need, and then you got because you got to do it for a diamond, and you got these edges here. Here you can see this. So you got your edges here. I don't know if you can get the camera to, and it's got a little bit of a concave shape in it. So when you pick up the saw, so he's sitting over there doing his thing, he picks up a saw and he puts his edge and he goes all the way around the saw and picks out spots that he's going to hammer on. He marks them with a this doodad, you know, and he marks all the spots he's going to hammer. And he just spins that saw around on these ball bearings and hammers in them spots, and of course rechecks it and all that mess. When you get done, you got to put the tower line back in the saw, which is a spot around the ring where it's got the metal's expanded. Then it gets crimped to these rollers, and that's what he sets his RPM and all that mess on. I don't understand a lot of it, that's all I know. That's all I can tell you.
But he does all of them, right? All of them, even the big
Yes,
ones?
but a lot of times we'll send them off too.
Okay.
It just depends. Especially if they get real bad, you have to send them to the professionals to get it fixed. And then you hear all the old saw filers and stuff talking about rolling the saw out. You know what I mean? Well, how do you roll it out? And I said, well, I open the door and roll it right outside. Hey, no, sorry. I'm sorry. This is a CNC. It does this thing, you know, through all that. It's got a program in it that does CNC. Olson. I think it's Olson. I can't give all the names. Just don't want to do. This ain't my stomping ground. I've helped a few times. Yeah, I know enough just to be dangerous.
Okay.
But if there's a band like really screwed up, I can't fix it. But like the run-of-the-mill everyday bands, they taught me how to bench it a little bit and stuff. But these guys are real good at what they do. I mean, they're real, and they're checking the bands the same way. It goes on here, and they're checking for your back, your tension. Basically, you take a band and you roll it in the center of that band. Look at it across here. I'll just keep it like this. So the center of this band, you're gonna put a hump in that thing. So the outsides of the band is what they call your tower line. The tower line's on my supposed to pronounce, but it's the tightest spot. You got a bubble in the center, and then what you do is you use that roller up there, and you pull out of one or the other to get the band to where it's right for a certain RPM. You know, it's right for doing its thing. It's got enough back and stuff like that to accomplish its goals, which is it's the same gauge. So it's that same curved gauge. So when they're doing their thing, they'll pick it up and they'll check it to see if they got enough, they call it money in the bank. See if you got enough, you know, if that band's got enough tension in it to where they can then start working on tower lines. And your tower line's got to be moved. Your back is the tightest part, or your back is tighter, but your front's the tightest part of the band. So most of your strength is right here. Most of your strength in your band is in this section right here. It's doing the work. But what's back here is keeping it on the wheels and keeping it from deviating. See what I mean? It's just and that's all I know about that. I can't really go any farther because I don't really know. But they call it putting money in the bank, and then you take it out and move it. So you got to move every time you move your tower lines out or out, you're taking out of the center. So then you got to re-roll the center and check it with the gauge to put money back in the bank so you can take it out on the sides. 11 inches, and we run it. If you don't have a rec, we run it down closer to 9 inches. And then there's one. There's the back crack. Now this band's probably getting older. If you measure across the face of it, it's probably getting to be older, and the metal's getting stretched out. And then they'll weld it up, and they start working the metal, and that affects the whole area of the band. And you also got your back gauge where you're checking your back. This band, if you roll it all the way out, it actually has a little arc to it. You know what I mean? And they got a long straight edge, and all that shit affects it. You know how welding is. But you weld on something, it contracts and pulls. It just oh, that shit has to be balanced. So has to be balanced. So you know, we got to put it all back in order after they do some of that mess. It's a Clearman carriage, kind of a big deal for the hillbilly and up sawmillers, like the super duper fancy big time hoppy boppies. Sometimes they do like a different company carriage, like they got like a Tiger Cat of the carriages, Corley and stuff like that. But this is a Clearman. This is just a good all-around carriage. It's a linear positioner carriage, and it's set up onto a computer program. So it's got rods in there, the position, the nose, so that, you know, your knees, you know what I'm saying, where your knees push out So this thing can taper, it can do also, however your log's built, this carriage,
Are
on
you-
the go in a hurry can.
Well, you,
So like if
you
one
said,
end- so like if one end's thicker than the other, it knows.
Yeah,
this.
yeah, you put it on there and you bump it. We don't have a scanner, which we should have a scanner, but we don't. But you can bump it and position it, and then it's say when you lock it in, I don't know, I think so. But when you lock it in, well, from what I know, when you lock it in, it's locked in. So when you roll it around, you know, and hit your next face, it knows where it's at, and you hit a bump, it bumps it out an inch and an eighth.
Oh, okay.
For your next, automatically, all that stuff happens automatically. And it stays tapered. So if you're sawing a certain taper, you can take boards off of it, and that key holds that taper and brings it out. So if your log, say, it's high, it's just exaggerated, so if your log's like this, it knows that when it comes out, it's coming out even as the taper, see what I mean?
Okay.
But it's, and we got data wires and stuff that run out here in this, I got in this wrap. These data wires, there's like a pair of 22 and a pair 30 something, and every damn little chintzy wire in the bastards has to be right, you know, they're accuracy. And they get, you know, you bend them and whack on them and be sawmillers, you know, and that thing over. It's designed to get your production, but not have to sacrifice quality. So it's basically, it keeps your cants going through like this. And they'll have this table full, the in-feed side full, the out-feed side full. They'll have, that's your concentration deck over there. They'll have that deck full if they need it, you know, whatever, however they're sawing. And this operator, he can bring a can out, and you're always sawing for your money. Everything you're doing here is for your clear face. So he'll pull it out, and he'll roll that can around on these cradle chains, and he'll pick what he figures is the most expensive face of that can. As simple as that. What's the most expensive face? Puts it towards the fence, and that's the face you cut on. So every time, and then there's a guy on the bottom end that he's your flipper. So this guy can focus more on keeping it butt to butt to that fence and give him time to get its stuff lined up. So you're board going through this thing. And then that guy down there, he's rolling them around and picking your most expensive face to cut. And then once it gets down to, depending on what species it is, once it gets down to where it's too cheap a wood to make boards out of, and we're going to pallet stock, we're going to flitch it, he moves it out on that concentration deck, and you're stacking your hearts out there. And then when you get so many of them built up, they'll do a run out. They'll bring them all in, and then he'll set his fence to a real thick stock for your heartwood and just crank them through. Whereas like these here, once they get squared and get the wane off of them, they'll be flitches straight through, which is your thick stock, goes down pallet room for later.
So then the person that runs this saw
Sits back there, and he can sight down it, and the idea, so you're taking this guy's job, and he's more of a daggone, he's just operating this rig. He can see it all, and he can operate it. He's got a camera on the back side back here on this monitor where he can see, let me let you know. Oops, sorry, Mike.
I like the central AC.
Yeah, that's how we roll,
Yeah.
sawmiller style.
like that.
Yeah.
So anyways, he's sitting here and he's got a camera and he can see the backside there. He can see his belts outside the building, so he knows if he got to stop up. And this here's down the lumber room. So he knows if the guy's down there okay. He knows if he got a problem down here where he can't see behind his blind spot. And he knows if he got any stop ups on the outfeed conveyors on the outside of the mill. So he's sitting there, he's a big traffic cop, that's what this old boy's doing. He's pretty trained, pretty well trained. These guys, there's very few people that can do this on the payroll. I can't. I've done it a little bit, but I can't do it. But these guys, and he brings his stuff in from the head saw, and he picks the most expensive face, makes a set, sends it through. And the stuff with wane on it's got to go over to the edger. And he's peeling them off, and they're going to the edger, going to the edger, going to the edger, you know, until he gets to where it's no wane left on it. Up to a certain, less than 50%, that's long. But anyways, when he gets to where there's no more wane on it, then he'll drop the gate back here, and he's just sending boards straight through. So they start out like these, all you're looking at is going to go to the edger, go to the edger, go to the edger. And that's what's going to the edger right there. The edger's the gray machine up there. And then the edger man, he takes the wane off of it to whatever percent of the board, depending on what we're selling to and stuff, however much wane he's took off, basically. And your most expensive wood's on the outside. So your most expensive wood tends to be boards that are edged. See what I mean? Because then by the time you get into the log farther, after you got boards that are, and you get some on big logs, big hardy logs like that poplar out there, that you're doing
face boards, which is the highest grade board. Face boards right up without edging them or nothing. But a lot of your expensive boards go through an edger. And an edger is every piece is an important part of the, every piece is important when you're going through this. Every job is. But, so the pressure's always on to, how much wood do we save? And that guy's always down there, where's the expensive face I put to the fence? And this guy, he's making sure nobody gets hurt. He's making sure the flow goes smooth. You ain't tearing up parts and people,
This is the heart and soul of the operation.
Yeah. But it's set up in such a way where the way the lumber room is now, it's real important. It's real primitive, but it's a real important area. But it can outrun it. We can't receive the lumber and do a good job of grading it as quick as what it can put it out. Which is where you want to be. You don't want to be where you got to run to the stoppers all the time. So you're just going from one machine to the other and trying to take out bottlenecks. That's all you're doing all the time. And everything's run on photocells. So these jump tanks, they all jump automatically. There's a set of photocells down here. So when the board ends get there, these chains jump. They're need cleaned off. The eyes need cleaned off, but let's see. And then the boards get there, and then in the eyes, the way the eyes, see the break in the eyes there in the center, so it knows the board to the edge or can't to this side. So that's how they jump up, and they got to drop before the next one comes. So jump up, sweep, drop. Jump up, sweep, drop, and it's automatic. And that's why we call them sweep chains, because you sweep the deck off with it, But he's got everything over here he needs. And he's bringing them in, he's dealing a cant, he picks it up and rolls around, he's putting his money over here. So the money's always going to this side of the cant, because when it goes down, it goes through, it's going to the fence. So he's picking for his money and dropping. Picking for his money and dropping. And he gets to where, depending on what species it is, it gets real complex. It's more than I need to talk in this video. But and he'll make a decision and say, all right, we're going to paddle stock it now, we're going to flitch it. And he pulls it out there on this deck and it sets weight to be flitched. If you get a congestion and problems, you can pull stuff over to the side. So it's about options, it's about keeping your options. So you got enough options to keep the flow going smooth through this thing. And these guys are freaking good at it. They are good at it. They can make the life in a lumber room a living hell because they know what they're doing so good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the last thing you want is the life in a lumber room to be a living hell. Anytime you make it a living, it starts into an us and them thing. That's terrible for a company. Us and them, terrible. They'll get into it, these guys get into it, and they crack heads, and then the company pays the bill. See what I mean? Mm-hmm. This is the edger, and it's got lights up there, and he moves it side to side, and technically you're allowed on a face board, which a lot of these boards are face boards that are waning, except for the low grade logs, top of the tree. And you do, every bit of wane you take off the side of the board, you know what wane is, that's where the edge of the board's round. Every little bit you're taking out of the width of that board, which is taken away from your cuttings, it's giving you less option. You don't want to take your width out. But there's only a certain amount which you're allowed to wane in a face board, which we shouldn't, unless they push that, we should have them down there. So the rules is 50% length of the board in wane. Well, you get people that wants it down to more like 20% or 25%. So you're always edging. Everything's done to the company you're selling to. So every time they set up on a species, there's a whole, all right, these guys are taking this, the uppers is going here, the 1 and 2 is going here, 1's going here, the 1 and 2 is going here, blah, blah. And here's the prices they're paying, here's what they're doing, and that tells you, and there's charts made of what everybody's paying and stuff, so how you can view on a board, which I'm getting ready to show you. That's where all the shit hits. This is where all the mill work's done. But down there, that's where all the money can be rekindled. Okay. And it's all based, so everybody's got to be on board. Everybody's got to know where shit's going, knows how and it all based off markets too. A company today, when say, if Red Oak's up, which ain't been a long time, but say Red Oak's up for just an idea, they'll let a lot of shit slide when Red Oak's up. Red Oak's down, ugh. You got to go back to playing it by the nitty gritty, and maybe then some. Or they'll start claiming on you. And a claim is when they don't agree with your grade. So they buck you on the price of lumber on a certain percent of the load, because it didn't agree with your grade. Everything, you'll notice everything around here we try to keep smooth with your fingers. See what I mean?
Yeah.
The ropes are hanging down here because everybody used to wear their head out on that. But this guy here, he's a traffic cop. Now as the boards come off, they come off bow. The boards, when you make a cut, it always bows. The wane side, the board the wane's on, it always cuts to that side. The heartwood's always longer for some reason. The way the tree is, the heartwood's always longer than, so you always turn them wane side up. So as they come off the saw, you're always taking the outside of the tree and turning it up. It makes them convey better because they'll sit on the chains right. And a grader, and also when it gets down to the grading room, the grader makes his grades from the poor side of the board. He's got to look at both sides, but every board he's getting the right side up first. And then when he reaches down, he flips the board, then he's looking at the poorer face. So that's kind of, so it conveys better, so everything's got something to it. It's amazing how all the decisions these guys have to make in an average day. You know? Here's your chipper, here's where all your waste goes. And everything in the mill takes its waste. So you got 3 dimensions, length, width, and height. So as you do your 3 dimensions, you know, you get, as you trim it off, you end up with the waste from all 3 dimensions. And all the waste ends up down here. And this conveyor right up here is from the lumber room. It's where their waste ends up here, which we'll get in that in a minute. Here's your length. This is your double end trim. As your boards come through, there's photocells that's telling the length of the boards. And this guy also has, if he's quick enough, which they come through here at a rate of speed, it's hard for this guy to keep up mentally with the making his calls. But say you get a board, you know, you do a butt log, it happens a lot on, that's gonna be a tapered board. So the end of your board, you got a good board here, it's been edged, so your edges are good, but you get to the end of the board and it tapers off to a bunch of trash because of the way the log was. Well, he can drop 2 saws instead of dropping 1, you know, and cut that off. He's catching them. Or you get a doty end, say you get a butt that's got dote on it, or a top log that gets dote on it. He can drop a saw. So the photocell
So these saws are up, and then they're down right now, but they're up, and then he can.
As it goes through, it can do its own thing where it senses you got a board that's 10 foot and 8 inches for some reason. It'll say, all right, this is a 10 foot, and it'll drop the saw down and it'll make it 10 foot 4 inches. You got 4 inches of overcut. So it'll drop it down, make it 10 foot. But say you turn around and you say, all right, there's 2 foot of trash on the end of that 10 footer. Well, we're gonna make it an 8 foot. And he'll override a computer, drop an 8 foot saw down. Constantly, you know, he's constantly, the next lug's coming up. So you either gotta stop the unit and then this starts backing up, you know. The system works good enough for our size that a lot of the flow ends up in the chaos if every operator ain't doing good in controlling his part of the work. You see what I mean? So now, the mill work's done. We've made our first initial stab at length, width, and height. You got your 3 dimensions, and it's coming down here. And as it gets down here, this is where we put, and it's the most primitive looking room on the place. But there is a lot of thinking and trimming and work to try to upgrade your boards. This guy is taking the boards and he's making the grades. And then what the grades are designed on is clear face cuttings. A cutting ain't the board. The cuttings are a percentage of that board's face. So say you got a 14-foot board and 83% of that's clear, that's your highest grade, that's a 1 face. 66 2/3 is clear, that's a 1 common. And then 50% 2 common, 33% is 3 common. And that ain't all there is to it. There's certain dimensions it's got to fall under. It's a long drawn out process. But basically you got 83, 66, 50, and 33. That's your grades. And if it can't make any of that, it's cough. See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But you can also take wide boards. When you get wide boards, when you get these big wide boards and these big long boards, there's a lot of units, what we call it. And that's the cutting units in a board, which is a 1-inch strip by 12 inches long. You can take that board, manipulate that board, sometimes cut it in half in length. Make 2 8-footers out of a 16-footer. 1 8-footer be a high grade, Next 8-footer be a low grade. So your wood is still there. All your units is there. But now you've took it, busted it up, and part of that board went in this pack, part of that board went in another pack. You can also do that little trick in length. You can rip it. That's her rip saw. It's an old antique bucking saw that earns its keep every day. But you can take a wide board that end up with some knots on one side. Say you got a board that's 10 inches wide. You got a board 10 inches wide, but one side of the board has a couple knots on it. The other side of the board is completely clear. You can get it all the way down to where your minimum is 3 inches. So you can do like a 7 inches of face lumber and go all the way down to 3 inches of common lumber. So you take that board and you do a little whip stitch, and the next thing you know, you got an upgraded board. You still got all your units. See what I mean? Wow. So it gets freaking complex. That's what you're doing, and it's small cutoffs. You know, and I ain't gonna get in all the rules, and I ain't bullshitting or bull messing my way through it. I do know the rules, but there's a lot of rules. That's what people goes to a 3-month course just to learn how to grade lumber. You know, to do it right.
My pen in my pocket. It's here that I can screw, that I can put down in my pocket, that'll fill my pocket up.
To keep it.
To keep, so I don't have to have that in there and my freaking, because I got to have everything in here to hold my camera. This holds the camera real well.
Yep. Yeah, and a
then
board
it's
to have
the
that
freaking
fuzz
heavy.
on it to where it actually grip onto your
Yeah.
stick too. Yeah. Anyway, that's what it's done. Here was a piece of a rip. Ready marked. But you get unsound wood is not allowed in clear face cuttings. Rot, pith, shake, and wane. Pith's the center piece cord on your tree. It's the very center of your tree. It's called pith. Shake, that's shake.
So that's what you see when there's a tree laying on the ground and it's like got cracks in the butt of it.
Yes, that's shake. So that's shake. Of course, we all know what rot is. That's a little piece of rot.
Okay.
And it gets down like that. You're grading for that stuff. It's hard to see it in time. I mean, it's ridiculous. It takes us, they say like to properly grade, you can grade, a human can grade like, to grade right with the rules, about 14,000 feet a day. And we're sawing 30s and 40s.
Really?
See what I mean? So it's, and there's days, in poplar days, you'll crack 50. You know, so just depends on what the species is. So it's hard to do it and keep it doing it right. But that's rot, pith, shake, and wane. So you got to cut that out of your clear face cuttings. Here you go. Here's some bird peck stuff, wormholes. You know, that's unsound wood too. You know, we're cutting off all your unsound wood. Bird peck on the end of that.
Now what's bird peck?
Woodpeckers after
Okay.
bud.
I'll be dang.
Wormholes and stuff like that.
Okay.
But anyway, so that's what you got to get that out of your clear face cuttings. Now there's times it can, in lower common grades, it can be in your board as long as it ain't in your cuttings. Your cuttings is, so you get all the way down to 3 common, you're grading for 33% of that board. If it makes a grade, throw it in there. You know, but if the board's big enough, we'll cut that off, throw that in a chipper, as long as it fits to a certain so this is 4/4 beech, 1 common and better, because that's all we grade to on beech. So 2 common and 3 common in beech is pallet wood. But so for face, I don't know how our system's working here. I'm getting to make an ass out of myself. But the upgrade from the cull to 1 common is 58%. So cull's figured at 20 cents a foot. And this is 46.5 cents a foot for 1 common. So what she's saying to the lumber grader is if you want to cut half of that board off and throw in a chipper, you can and still make that upgrade. You can cut going from 1 common to a 1 face, and 1 face and face is pretty much the same price in most species all the time. But you can cut, you can take this board here and cut 22% of it off and throw it in a chipper to make that grade. So the whole time he's looking at it, he's, bam, 22%, I crack off 22%. Oh, hell, I can take 50% off that board and do it. See what I mean? Of course, you got to figure labor in, so you ain't going to push the figures completely. So you drop a few cents for labor, you know, or that, a few percents for, you know, percentage points. So they're doing that, they're making them all day long, and it keeps coming, you know. And then you get the markets like we got, and I'm not going to get political or nothing, but you get the trade war on these communist countries that we're having to eat our lunch now because they've been eating our lunch for years. So we're going through this battle with them, which sucks for all of us doing it, but now lumber's moving tough, and we're working our butts off up there, mama and mommy, you know, big mama and mommy, and just to get it sold. And so you'll get an order for 1 load of hickory or 2 loads of soft maple or something, and well, we can eat that in no time. So here the whole thing comes, they're starting on it all, you gotta get the percentages right, and bam, 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 get the thing going, fill the carts up, push them all out, because we change species. Push everything out the door, and they're all out there doing all this mess, and next thing, next species is coming, you know. And you gotta get your cogs back in a row, get your lumber graders together, make sure they got their shit together, start down that species. And it may be too low. I'm being exaggerated. There has been 1 load orders, but you get down to what we saw 1 load of cherry last week. We pushed out for Monday. We only saw until Wednesday. We're down a little bit on hours because of the trade wars, and but we saw 1 load of cherry. I mean, you have to keep up on the rips and the chops and everything because you're going to get all that out. You're going to get it back, regrade it back, and push it all out and get ready for the next species. But I mean, you can't butcher the wood because we went out and we paid top dollar on the stump for it. You know, we bid on it. The guy down the road, and we beat him out because we put more money on what he thought it was worth. You see what I mean? And you're always cracking heads like that, and you bring it in here, you got to work your butt off here to make sure you get it covered, you know. And then push the sunbuck out and try it all again. So it's all about the wood. It's all about the wood. You know, and it takes years of trying and fighting and struggling to try to protect that wood. But that's usually where you're, you know, I guess that's about it. And there's the tally line. This is where Molly works. So this, Molly does a lot of her noodling around. So she's making loads of lumber. And there's her stencils. So there's when she's selling to Bailey. There's her load numbers. There's Somerset, selling to Somerset. We got a lot through this trade war. We have changed a lot of companies. I was hoping some of them would pop up because I don't even know a lot of them's name just yet. But it's a struggle, and the problem is, you know damn good and well, if you're selling to a company you sold to for years, you got clout. Well, when this all happens and everybody's scrapping, you know what I mean? Everybody's fighting for every little piece, and you're going to somebody as a beggar. Would you take my stuff, please? You know what I mean? So you got to earn your, you know, and you have no clout, you have no nothing. And then we got some companies that got financially unsound that we've been depending on forever. So here we are, booed down the street. Yeah. You know, and you're fitting to run around trying to scurry up stuff. We found some good stuff. We got a good reputation for grade. We keep that in sawmill wood. And that reputation has helped us a bunch. And there's a lot of sawmillers out there right now that ain't got that reputation. They can't hardly sell anything right now. So we're thankful for that. Because right now is the thinning of the ranks. What we're going through right now is a good thinning of the ranks. But we're somehow figuring it out. So I guess that's about it. Thanks everybody for letting me catch you for hours.
You need to do the typical Wade mic drop. We're out.
No, it's just like this. So
game over.
I'm terrible at that.